Now that you've learned about types of variables, types of data, how to summarize that data numerically, how to tabulate and present that data, it's useful to see some examples from the medical literature of how this is done in practice. We're going to look at a few examples of Table 1. In a study, Table 1 usually is there to describe the characteristics of your sample so that the readers can assess if the study might be applicable to their own populations of interest. So here's a few examples of Table 1s, and we'll look at these to get a sense of what types of variables are being studied and how are they being summarized and presented. This is a study of a randomized controlled trial in RCT for patients with erectile dysfunction, and they're comparing Viagra to a placebo. And we can look and see at what variables they've measured. For example, they have the age of each patient, and then we can see what measures of summary statistics were used for these variables. So here for age, these researchers have used the mean to summarize that statistic. And what we can see is that the mean in this group is equal to the mean in this group. And we'll talk more about study design, and we'll see that when you randomize patients to receive either a placebo or a treatment or a control group or a treatment, that those should be roughly equal between each group. Now, notice what the researchers have decided here as far as the measure of spread. Usually when you see a mean, you might see a standard deviation or a variance. But in this case, they've reported the range. They've shown that in this study, there are men up to age 79 or up to age 76 who have participated in this treatment for erectile dysfunction. My hunch is that they're trying to send a message that this drug may or may not work across a very large range of ages. So they also do a similar for the mean duration of erectile dysfunction or the mean duration of diabetes. Now, we have to be careful when we see what type of variable this is. This variable type of diabetes, there's two numbers here. But what type of variable is type of diabetes? It's actually categorical, right? Type 2 diabetes isn't twice as bad as type 1 diabetes. That doesn't make any sense. These are just categories. There's no order to them. Type 2 isn't in any way ordered than type 1. So these are just nominal variables. You have to be careful not to think that the numbers mean something. So this is an interesting example of a Table 1 showing some of those summary statistics. Here's another example from a study that's not a randomized control trial. It's a study on people who use marijuana and people who abstain from marijuana. So these researchers have done a good job. They show the N, or the sample size, in each group. And they're trying to show in this Table 1 how the two groups compare to each other. So again, for age, we see the mean age, and they've decided to present the standard deviation. So you see the mean of this group with the measure of spread, and the mean of this group with a measure of spread. And as you learn more about distributions and visualizing and picturing data, you'll get a sense of what actually this looks like. I have a mean of 43 and a standard deviation of 8. Other variables that you see here, they have sex, conceptualized as a binary variable, male, female. And so you can see that in the marijuana users, 94% of are male, which means that 6% are not male, are female. So that's display of a nominal variable. I'll show you one more example. This is a study on kids who'd undergone a certain type of surgery. And here again, we see age. And these researchers have decided to report the central tendency of age as the median. So perhaps they've looked at the distribution and decided that there are values that are high or low, and the mean is not an appropriate measure of summary for that variable. And so they decided to report the median. And usually when you see the median, then for your measure of spread, you will see this interquartile range. Notice also that here they've reported male sex. And you might say, well, where's the corresponding line for female? But these researchers have said, well, look, if 41% are in this group are male, then you can do the math and figure that 100 minus 41% are female. So again, when we look at these Table 1s, it's a good practice to think about what types of variables the researchers have, how they've decided to summarize them numerically, and what they've done as far as measures of central tendency and also measures of spread. So read table one very closely and think of those next time that you read a study.